Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Leighanne and I talk about books. So today we are going to be doing my October wrap up. Once again, I did not do vlog style this month, and one of the reasons for that is I was traveling for work this month, and then whenever I came back I stayed really busy doing it all at one time here. However, there will be some books that I will not be going into detail about because they relate back to an earlier video that I made and will be discussed in a video later, so hopefully this won't be too long. So for the month of October, I read mostly horror. I read a total of 12 books, which equated to 2,798 pages. 18 hours of audiobook time, which I listened at 2 times or 2.5 times speed. So that equates to about 9 hours of audiobook. So 2 ebooks, 2 audiobooks, and 8 physical books. That is the total. All of them were adult books. 8 by male authors, 4 by female authors. Genres, we have 8 horror books, 3 mystery and thrillers, and then 1 contemporary. Years published: 3 2018 releases, 2 from 2017, 3 releases ranging from 2010 to 2016, 1 release from 2000 to 2009, 1 book from the 1980s, and 2 books from the 1970s. Star breakdown finally is no 5-star reads. Really? I thought I had a 5-star read. I guess not. 5 4-star reads, 6 3-star reads, and 1 2-star read. No 1 stars. Okay, so now that we've talked about stats enough, let's go ahead and talk about the books. Oh, one thing that I did do is I did participate in 1 readathon this month. I participated in the Books in the Freezer readathon in honor of the Books in the Freezer podcast turning 1. I will link Stephanie and Rachel's channels down below, as well as the information for the podcast. I had initially planned on vlogging, and then I had to go out of town for work, and it just didn't happen. But I did finish 4 out of the 5 books that I had planned on finishing for that, so I definitely call that a win. So the first book that I read, which was for the readathon, was The Bloody Chamber. This is by Angela Carter, and I didn't really know what to expect going into this. I did listen to it via audio. I managed to snag it on like a daily deal from audible.com, and then whenever I was looking for something to actually read for this readathon, I noticed that I could use that for a prompt, which was for, I think, like female author or something like that. Anyway, it's a short story collection. I had never read anything by Angela Carter before now, and it's kind of dark fairy tale retellings, which, as most of you guys know, I really dig stuff like that, so I was really excited to actually read that. Again, the narrators, and I don't recall who they were right now, were excellent. It was done back and forth between 2 different narrators, a male and a female narrator. But the stories themselves were really well done. I think the collection was originally published in '79. And so when you think about a female horror author in the 70s, for being as dark as it was, like there was a lot of feminist undertones. Not even undertones, it was like overtly feminist, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. The one thing that I will say about it is that, based on the fact that it was in the 70s, there was the feminism, which was great, but then there was some antiquated language and some antiquated ways of thinking. So Angela Carter is a British writer, and when you think about the presence that the British had in India, there were some really not great descriptions about some Indian characters. So know that going into it, that is a thing. Again, when you look at the time period in which it was written, like, I get it, but I didn't like it. But overall, again, dark fairy tale retellings, like bloody gore, feminism, I dig it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read was an ebook that I got off Amazon. It is The Bedding of Boys by Edward Lorn. He is an indie published writer. He and I talk back and forth on Twitter. He's a really, really awesome guy. He also has a YouTube channel, which I'll also link down below if you're interested. Let's talk about his book, The Bedding of Boys. That was released this year. I had actually pre-ordered it, and I finally got to it, and it took me a while to read it. And the reason that it took me a while to read it is because the characters in this book, or the main character, I should say, she's absolutely abhorrent. The title of the book pretty much alludes what the content of the book is. So you have Regina Corsi. She is your main character, and she has like this insatiable bloodlust, and she also is attracted to younger boys. And there's a paranormal twist to it. I think that one of the reasons that it took me so long to read this was probably because of the sexual relation with young boys thing. I just finished Tampa the month before, and that was disgusting. However, I couldn't see the point of Tampa versus I could see what E was trying to do in the writing of this book, but that doesn't mean that I liked that bit of content. However, I ended up giving it like 3 stars. And the reason that I gave it 3 stars is because I did really enjoy the writing, and I have a couple of his other books on my Kindle that I'm really looking forward to reading because I did very much enjoy his writing. And if it just weren't for that one thing, I think the book would have been amazing. So if you're into indie horror and E isn't on your radar yet, he definitely should be. I encourage you to pick up some of his other books. This one, I say some of his other books. This one's not for the faint of heart. Like, I'm just letting you know right now. It's not for the faint of heart at all. There's gore and again with the sexual relation, but the character development was really great. The development between other relationships in the book was also really great. And the paranormal twist, I thought, to the book also was really great. So, and the next one that I picked up, which was also for the Books in the Freezer readathon, was the Amityville Horror. This is by J. Anson. So this is a quintessential haunted house book, right? And I wrote this one for, I think, books that's been adapted or something like that. That was the prompt for this one. But I gave it 3 stars. I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. I think that maybe I would have liked it a little bit more had I not seen the film beforehand and like knew what was going on. You know, obviously it says a true story, but we know that's not a true story. So it reads very much like a true crime, but like a haunting, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know, I'm not gonna talk too much about this, honestly, because if you've seen the movie, you know what the book is about. It is a well-beloved classic horror book. I just thought it was okay. I didn't love it and I didn't hate it, so. Next up was the second ebook that I read this month, and that is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which is by Stuart Turton, I believe. I got this one off of NetGalley 8 million years ago before it was released and didn't read it until just now. So the plot synopsis of this book is kind of like Groundhog Day meets a murder mystery or something. It's very difficult to explain, and I don't want to go too far into the plot because I feel like the less you know going into it, the better off you're gonna be. I will say that about halfway through the book, I felt like I was going in circles. It takes a minute to figure out who all the characters are. I did not love the way that it ended, and there's a couple of passages where they're talking about a character in particular. He's a very large man. He's a large, rich man, and they talk about how disgusting his body is and like all of these things. And it was just really gross to talk about someone that way. I did not appreciate that in any capacity whatsoever, regardless of the fact that it was an old rich man. It was just really rude. I understood why the author put an emphasis on his weight, because the whole thing is it's taking him longer to get places and, you know, kind of fucking up the plans or whatever. However, it was just the way that it was written. It was like, this man is disgusting and his disgusting body and just gross, and it was just totally uncalled for. I hated that. I ended up giving this book initially 3 stars, but the more I think about it, like, honestly, this book, I see a lot of people really love it. To me, I just thought that it was forgettable. I didn't really care what happened, and again, I did not really care about the ending. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't really care about much of it. So that being said, I think I would probably lower the rating to like 2.5 stars when I initially rated it 3. See, I do this way too much. So that's how I felt about that book. If you really love like mystery thrillers, like I would say maybe give it a go, but it wasn't for me personally. Next up, I decided to reread HeartShaped Box by Joe Hill. I remember I had actually rated this 2 stars on Goodreads, and I remember not really liking it. And I think the reason that I didn't like it is because I was 17 whenever I read it. I feel like that speaks for itself, you know. There's a lot of books that I read as a younger person that I'm going back through and reading now, and I'm seeing it a very different way, and that's one of the things that I did with this. So this is a ghost story, a haunting. I really liked it this time around. I ended up upping the rating to 4 stars. And pretty much this is about Judas Coyne, who is an aging rock star. He's kind of retired a little bit. He loves things like the occult, and he collects like kind of occult things. And they get a notification on eBay one day about this haunted man suit, that it was a suit that they were going to bury him in, and then they didn't, and now a ghost comes with the suit. So he's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna buy this suit. and then things go from there. There is a lot in this book about mental illness, and I blew through this the second time around. I ended up really liking it. I would say that I liked this one even more than I liked The Fireman even. So 4 stars, definitely enjoyed this one. Next on the list, I have Cabal by Clive Barker, and this one was also for Books in the Freezer. This was for a LGBTQIA plus character or author, and as we all know, Clive Barker is gay, so that's why I decided to choose a Barker book, because I have a very extensive collection back behind me, but ever since I read The Great and Secret Show and I hated it, I have been scared to pick anything else up. So I just decided to bite the bullet and go ahead and grab this one. This is actually the book that the film Nightbreed is based off of, which I have never seen, believe it or not. This was just okay. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Miles better than The Great and Secret Show, in my opinion. Maybe one day I'll reread that and I'll like it better, who knows. So in this story, Boone sees a psychologist, Decker, and Decker makes Boone believe that he has committed these absolutely atrocious crimes. And so Boone runs away to Midian, and things happen, and he becomes a Nightbreed. And that's all I'm gonna say about the plot. That's all I really can say about the plot. Clive Barker is so hard to summarize because his concepts are so abstract. It's one of the things that I appreciate and hate about him at the same time, if that makes any sense. But after picking this up, I want to read more Barker. There's a lot of like gratuitous sex and blood and that kind of thing, so that's a thing. But I mean, I liked it. So at least there's that. Next on the list is the other audiobook that I listened to this month, and that is The Devil Crept In by Ania Ahlborn. And I really liked this. I gave it 4 stars. I got this one from my library. So this is the story of a young boy whose cousin, who is also his best friend, is abducted. And he's gone for several days, and all of a sudden he comes back, but he is not himself at all. People have said for a long time in the tiny little town that they live in the Pacific Northwest that something is in the woods. People don't really go in the woods, and people don't have pets either. That's all I'm gonna tell you. That's all I'm gonna tell you. That's all you need to know. I really, really liked this book. I listened to this on audio while I was traveling back and forth for, you know, the work that I had to do, and the areas that I had to go through while I was listening to this book, and I'm driving, mind you, either really, really early in the morning or late at night. The areas that I'm going through, it's like woods lined on both sides. I'm in the middle of BFE, right? Like, I'm glad I had cell service the whole way, because if I didn't, there were some times where if I had wrecked my car or hit a deer or something, like, it probably would have taken like maybe an hour for somebody to find me, because there was just nobody driving. So that made for like a really creepy experience, especially because of what was going on there. I did enjoy the character development and the pacing. The one thing that I didn't really enjoy was the main character has some form of obsessive compulsive disorder. I just didn't feel like that aspect of it was written very well. I didn't like it, but I liked pretty much everything else. Trigger warning, major trigger warning for like child abuse, however, within this book. That part also isn't great, but overall, like 4 stars, really, really enjoyed it. I really can't wait to read more from her. So next up is The Hunger by Alma Katsu. I was sent this book by Glasstown Entertainment in exchange for a review. So I have actually, by the time this video goes up, I will have already posted that review. So just know that I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I will link a card up above so that you can go and watch the review. It is spoiler free. So, and next up, I read The Troop by Nick Cutter, and this is the last Nick Cutter book that I actually needed to read, and this is the best Nick Cutter that I have read, in my opinion. So this is about the troop. It's a Boy Scout troop or Eagle Scout or whatever the fuck they are. And they're in the Canadian wilderness on like this little island. And all of a sudden this dude comes up on a boat and he's like emaciated and he's so hungry. Then stuff starts to happen. The pacing in this was really good. Parts of it reminded me of like Lord of the Flies, and parts of it also reminded me of something else, but I can't remember what that is right now. But it's told back and forth between what's actually happening on the island, and then you're getting like snippets of interviews or news clippings or scientific journals and things like that about what's happening on the island, or what had previously happened on the island. So you're kind of, you know, starting to piece things together. Serious note for body horror. There is a lot of body horror in this, and there were a couple of moments that I was like, all right, I need to put this down for a moment. Oh, makes me think of The Ruins. That's what it is. Not at all in the same vein of antagonist, what's causing the body horror, but the type of body horror is somewhat similar. But 4 stars, I enjoyed it, and I really want to know when Nick Cutter's gonna come out with another book, because now I've read everything, and so I need more. 4 stars. Next, I picked up A Dark Matter by Peter Straub, however you say it, Straub. I think it's Straub. And I gave this one 2 stars. This is also one that I am not going to talk about because this is a book for my lowest rated books video. I will link that up above also if you wish to check it out. It's basically just where I go through my Goodreads and see what are the 5 lowest rated books that I own, and then I'm gonna read them, and then we're gonna circle back. So at this point, I've read 1, 2, and I'm in the middle of the 3rd, so I just have 2 more left. So hopefully that video will come out sometime in November, but I gave it 2 stars. You're gonna have to wait and see why I gave it 2 stars until the actual video. And next up, we have Final Girls by Riley Sager. Thriller, and I gave it 3 stars. It was just okay. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. A lot of stuff that I read this month was just okay. So this book follows Quincy, who was a victim in a massacre with her and her friends when she was in college. All of her friends were killed except for her, making her a final girl. And apparently there are 2 other girls in the country that experience something very similar. So, you know, the media has named them the final girls or whatever. Well, one of the other final girls turns up dead, but she emailed Quincy right before she died and said, hey, it's really important, I need to talk to you. And then the other girl, the 3rd girl, shows up at Quincy's doorstep, and things kind of go from there. The pacing was wonky for me. There were times where I was like, oh shit, stuff's happening, and there were other times where I was like, all right, that's cool. I didn't really care for a lot of the characters, and you could kind of see what was coming about 3.5 miles away. I have definitely read worse thrillers. I think that this was actually a debut. So if this was her debut and it was just okay, I feel like maybe, I do have another book by her on my shelf, like The Last Time I Lied or something, and I'm looking forward to reading that one. 3 stars, it was just okay. But if you really enjoy thrillers, like, this is something that you might like, so. And the last book that I finished for the month is Tell All by Chuck Palaniuk. I gave this one 3 stars, and this is actually another book for my lowest rated books video. So 3 stars, but you're gonna have to see why I gave it 3 stars in another video. So that is all I have today. So this is the stack of books that I read, plus 4 more, right? Yeah, plus 4 more. I'd say that was pretty good for the month of October, all of my horror books and everything. So have you guys read any of these books? If you have, make sure you comment down below and let me know of what you thought of them. Make sure you keep it spoiler free for those that haven't read these books. If you want to discuss spoilers, all of my social media links can be found in the down bar below. You can reach me on Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram. As always, thank you guys so very much for watching. If you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you click thumbs up or hit subscribe if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.